Good afternoon, and welcome to this special time set aside to remember Karen Barron and celebrate her life. Karen was, well, I'm just going to say it, she was a real kick in the pants. I absolutely adored her honesty, her warmth, her humor, and her resilient and ebullient spirit. It's hard to believe she's gone. She was sort of a force of nature. I miss her a lot already, and I know I'm not the only one. A couple of housekeeping details for those of you who are our guests today. There are bathrooms just through the doors past the elevator and to the right. After the service, there's a reception downstairs in the fellowship hall. We hope you'll join us all. We hope you'll join us. Karen's jewelry, she wants everybody to take jewelry in memory of her, so it's all out there. There's a lot of it, so don't hold back. Because Karen found a home here as part of this church community, we're also going to take just a moment to light the chalice, which is the symbol of our faith. Please know, though, that whatever your religious background, your identities, or your life experiences, we practice radical hospitality. Everyone is welcome, and everyone is worthy just as you are. These are words by my colleague, Mira Mickelwitz. We light this chalice, which transforms wax into pure light and warmth, to remind us of our own living, transforming the stuff of this world into the love and activity of our daily lives. As we remember Karen, may today bring forth transformation in ourselves, from grief, healing, from memory, wholeness, and from celebration, love. So we're gathered today to celebrate Karen's life and, of course, to also mourn her death. When we share our grief with one another, that grief is eased. So we come together to say goodbye. Saying goodbye is all about saying thank you. The path through grief is gratitude. Our task together then is to lift up Karen's legacy, to appreciate all the ways her lives touched and enriched ours and will continue to touch and enrich ours in the future. When we leave today, our responsibility and our privilege will be to embody her legacy in the days, months, and years to come. So let's begin by rising in body or in spirit to sing, "Come Sing a Song with Me." Thank you. So, Karen, being Karen, she wrote her own eulogy. Of course she did. So, what I'm about to share with you are her words. She writes, "I have died. Breast cancer turned into liver cancer. My passing was peaceful and welcomed, and I was surrounded by those who love me. It's okay. Really. I've had a long, mostly very good life. My life was filled with classical music, pets, camping, rock climbing, whitewater and quiet water canoeing, theater, square dancing, playing racquetball, backpacking, sailing, motorhoming, and international travel, and on and on and on. The end comes to all of us, and it's my time. My contributions have been made, such as they are or were. I had challenges, and I did my best. I have few regrets. I just wish I could have made more of a difference, and I wish I could have been here to vote in the election." Cleveland was the location of my first breath in 1940. I met my sister Adrienne, who over the years was my teacher, my nemesis, a stranger, and finally a very good and supportive friend. Thank you, Adrienne. You were loved and appreciated. Thanks for being here at the end. My mother, Catherine, was one of 11 from a Ukrainian progressive farming family on the prairies east of Edmonton. She was a tough taskmaster, very creative, and a hard act to follow. And in the end, she always supported me. My dad, Adolf, was a University of Chicago Master's Economics graduate who became the head of the Chicago office of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. He was a fencer, socialist, skier, hiker, dad, and all-around good man. Alas, I never felt I got to know him well. The two of them were progressive, in love with nature, and independent in thought. As a result of their and others' varied influences, I found a love for adventure and for education and a willingness to try new things. I developed an interest in national and international news that stayed with me. You get the idea. Lots of interests and activities. But for reasons unknown, I was not a happy camper. When I came to this part, I was like, seriously? But stick with it. For reasons unknown, I was not a happy camper, and I was different, which made me the subject of some ridicule and bullying. I clearly survived, but it was not easy. I saw my first therapist in high school. Then in college, I remember telling my therapist that I didn't feel depressed. I was depression itself. Suicidal thoughts were frequent, and then there were moments of equally unexplained joy, all of which continued until I was accepted as a low-cost clinic patient at the Chicago Institute of Psychoanalysis. 4 times a week for 5 years, and then I graduated. I am so grateful for my doctor and the opportunity to learn to like and maybe love myself. The puzzle pieces came together. Speaking of love, at 21, while working in Chicago, I married Jim. It was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Life as we knew it was about to end, difficult times. The marriage ended after several years. There was some physical and emotional abuse. I used that experience to support others later. I became pregnant despite being on birth control. Fortunately, I had access to safe and non-traumatic illegal abortion. No children. I never wanted children, as I was sure I would have been a terrible mother. No regrets. And yes, I worked. Started babysitting, then waitressed, then became a secretary, and then an assistant economist in a federal home loan bank. I got hired as the manager of 2 different savings and loans, and then became an employment counselor. I got fired a couple of times too. Yes, you were getting warts and all. And after several false starts, I graduated from college with enormous thanks to my parents who put up with me. I even tried graduate school in economics, but while I was probably smart enough, I was definitely not a good student. And then all that work was interrupted by sailing. At 45, while living in San Francisco, I married Charlie, or Pete, Peterson. We met through an ad. He was 20 years older, a World War II veteran, a general contractor, very strong union man, a hellraiser, a man's man, and a sailor, and an amazing, awesome man with a wonderful family. After some years, he closed his business, and we moved onto his 37-foot sailboat, the Anna Maru. She was our home. We sailed the inside passage of the Pacific Northwest and beyond for the next 8 years. Then we returned to San Francisco Bay and found a home and bought a motorhome, and we sailed and traveled until his death. We were married for 14 years. It was an interesting time with amazing scenery and many wonderful and sometimes scary moments. And yes, he was a challenging man to be married to. We were soulmates, and truth be told, sometimes I was lonely. But what a man. When your partner dies, either suddenly or slowly, it's a shattering experience. I was indeed shattered, but I survived and eventually began to look for a new partner, new love. Several years later, I met Jim Barron. Once again, through an ad, RVers looking for traveling partners. And in no time at all, I moved to Pullman, Washington. Having said on first glance, during a week-long blind date, that I could never live in a place like this, I quickly fell in love with this little farming university community. Jim had retired from Washington State University's Agriculture Economics Department as chair some years before. Oh, how fortunate we both were to find someone in our late 60s that was so compatible and challenging at the same time. Merging two full-life households is a challenge which we met head-on. Families were welcoming, and life was good, very good. And we traveled a lot in the RV, once for 10 months, all the way to Newfoundland and south, then west for the winter. Another outstanding trip was to India with Rhodes Scholar, and we loved square dancing. His grandkids were very much a part of our lives. During all of my travels on Anna Maru and in our motorhomes, I kept meeting wonderful people and having so many marvelous moments and seeing so many marvelous sights, including national parks and more. I did not live a boring life. And then, as they say, the shit hit the fan. Turns out the golden years can involve major health issues. The good news is that generally we took turns. One of those was a brain bleed and paralysis for Jim. I told the rehab people that I wanted him to get up and walk out and drive the motorhome east. They blanched, but he did it. We soldiered on, and I learned more medical stuff than I ever wanted to know. After years of periodic major suffering from ulcerated colitis, I finally got rid of the offending colon and so became a bag lady. Not a problem. Then I had cancer, and 5 years later it turned to stage 4 breast cancer. I contacted a naturopathic doctor who became a friend and whose guidance I followed. I know all those supplements and shots made a difference. And oh, did I mention that I also had pulmonary arterial hypertension? A rare disease, according to the NIH, but it was well controlled by Viagra. Check it out, and other medications. As we became less able to travel in the RV, a sad day, I became more involved in several organizations. I joined the League of Women Voters, volunteered as a hotline volunteer for Alternatives to Violence of the Palouse, trained to be a long-term care ombudsman for long-term care facilities, volunteered for senior chores, and briefly, before I was fired, for hospice as well. Kind of wish she'd written out that story. How do you get fired by hospice? For 6 years, First with Jim and then by myself, I volunteered at Jefferson Elementary School in first grade for the same teacher. What a blast. Years before in San Francisco, I'd volunteered for the suicide prevention hotlines for several years. Back in Pullman, I was a member of the Huckleberry Red Hatters in Moscow for years and a staunch regular exerciser at water aerobics and the Pool Pals luncheons and SAIL at Bishop Place. And in the last few months, yoga at Pullman's Rec Center. Having to give all that up was hard, but by then I needed the rest. Most of the time, Jim and I had foreign students living with us, a delight, each and every one. Once it was a student from Uzbekistan, his English-learning wife, and their infant son, and her mother. Luckily, we had the room and the energy. Others came and stayed from Armenia, China, and then India. They were all going for a PhD in economics. All became and remain members of our family. Then the unthinkable happened, and Jim, after complications from a fall, died in January 2019. It turned out that Jim was a very discreet but serious drinker, and I was very unaware. His excessive need for wine contributed to his death. Again, I was devastated, and the grief and pain and sadness and emptiness goes on and on and on. I'm grateful that his family helped put on a very life-affirming, joyous celebration of life. Jim always wore bolo ties, and I put them out for attendees to help themselves to, in memory of him. Shortly after his death, I started attending and then joined the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Palouse. What a fantastic community of people. There is no creed, but the 7 principles are all important. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are part. It's the first time I've ever read the principles as part of a eulogy, but I'm going to honor her wishes. All are welcome in this loving community, and I'm grateful to have found a home there, atheist that I am. Then, on my 84th birthday, May 26th, dear friends Joe and Bob insisted on putting on a major party for me in my own backyard. Lots of friends and neighbors came and brought cards and good thoughts and hugs and flowers and lots of food. We even had live music provided by our dear neighbors. What a very special day it was for me. My swan song, and it was beautiful and the weather was perfect. The people in Pullman and Moscow are good people. No, they are great people. On and off during my life, I've had pets. My first was my dear dog Laddie that I never forgot, and then cats. The importance of pets cannot be overstated. As I've ended my life, my 2 wonderful cats are Mr. Love and Mr. Wonderful brothers, aka Velcro 1 and Velcro 2. I believe I found a good home for them, for which I am grateful. As I edit this in mid-2024, on the eve of my own death, I can only hope that my final days pass with grace and dignity, and that I leave my affairs in order for my poor, inexperienced executor. I made a positive difference in some lives and feel good about that. I did not leave banana peels lying around. I picked up after myself. I spoke my mind, atheist, cheerful pessimist, liberal, pro-abortion, and assisted suicide, and in general tried to be a good, if not perfect, human being. Pullman is a good town and is enriched by the presence of WSU and the U of I. I've enjoyed its offerings and the friends I made here. It is with pleasure that I have enough resources to bestow gifts to a number of the institutions I value here. My parting wish is that all Homo sapiens get their act together and live with civility and sustainability. and that WSU will put my body to good use in their willed body program for med students. Eventually, ashes to ashes and dust to dust, and we are all stardust. Think kindly of me. Love, Karen. We're going to have some brief remembrances now, and we're going to start with Karen's sister, Adrienne, who's going to be with us via Zoom. These transitions take just a minute, so bear with us.
Hi, am I heard? Am I there yet? Have we passed on to the next phase? Well, I'll begin. It's about my sister, about Karen. Karen was my sister, you know. I loved her, you loved her, a lot of people loved her. And most people respected her attitude about the things she encountered in life. Karen supported students in the local school. She supported the UU church groups. And she supported her community and had fun with the red hats. She had endless energy and spunk. She was honest and open about all things to all people. It seems people have testified to me that she has helped a good number of people over difficult obstructions in their personal life. She was unstoppable until she was stopped. She has helped a good number of people over difficult obstructions in their personal life. She was, however, even in death, she was determined to do good things. The body went to the Willed Body program for continued education of our future doctors. And in her will, she has left benefits to this group and that. She would have worked for Biden, she would have voted for Biden, but she would be thrilled to vote for Harris. Yes, she was a liberal, she was woke, progressive, and a very happy cat lady. Now Karen's atoms and energy are part of the universe. Remember her and smile. That's it.
Thank you, Adrienne. And now I'd like to invite Jim Kenyon forward to share some memories as well.
I haven't stood up here for a long time, but it's good to be here today. Karen was a neighbor of ours. Her backyard had joined ours diagonally, and we got to know her soon after we had moved to our neighborhood in Pullman. Wanda reminded me, my wife, that maybe a couple months after we'd moved, we had a get-together with the neighbors, and from there it was knowing Karen. So many things have been described already that we experienced, and I made a few notes to share with you. Karen was a neighbor. Karen was a friend. She was a dinner guest at our house. We were dinner guests at her home. We were also part of a group of neighbors that got together periodically every 6 or 8 weeks. Some of those neighbors are no longer with us, but my goodness, what a pleasure it was to get to know those people, and Karen was an integral part of the group. We miss her very much, so many different ways. And also, she was a person of strong opinions, and she wasn't afraid to share those. And she could be a little abrupt at times, but she definitely had a soft spot in her heart. And I think we saw that every time. that we would get together. As others have already said, she cared about people. She cared about the environment. She also had a special relationship with a foster son that we had for a little over a year, who really looked forward to going over and visiting her and Jim. At one point in time when Jim was laid up, Adrian, our 5-year-old, was hired to bring their mail in for several weeks. And there was just a special relationship between Jim and Karen and our Adrian, who now is 12 years old and living at home with his father. She was a traveler. She sought out relationships when she lost her first husband, her second husband. She sought out relationships. She never let those losses drag her down. She was always looking for a way to connect and a way to make a difference. And maybe things didn't always go her way, but she found the lemonade, let's put it that way. Also, the Saturday before her passing, I had the opportunity to visit with her for a couple hours on a Saturday afternoon. One of our neighbors next door to us, who was part of her small group, and another lady from the Red Hat group was there. And what a marvelous 2 hours it was. And Karen shared many of the things that was in her obituary with us, things I didn't know a few things about. But it was a magical time. And I'd been to the farmer's market that morning, and I had brought home some fresh raspberries and blackberries, and I bought some flowers for the house. And I took all that down to Karen's place, and it just, we enjoyed the fruit, and I just felt really great that she would have those flowers to enjoy. So a marvelous last encounter with Karen. Thank you.
And Pam Arborgreen has a story as well.
Hello, friends.
Nope, you gotta speak into the microphone.
Okay.
Sorry.
Look over here.
Hmm?
Can I swing that way?
I can try swinging it that way.
Hello, friends and members of the UU Church. It was about a year ago when I first met Karen, and it was at a Unitarian Universalist potluck at DeTemple's home. And I happened to sit next to this lady that had all this magnetic jewelry on. And we got acquainted. After that, we kept running into each other at different events throughout the year and became closer, and I went to her sail class with the dance class that was over there in Pullman. And she started supporting my art, was always thoughtful about, and made such nice compliments. Could visit my booth. She visited my booth at the farmer's market. I don't know what that was, 3 weeks before she died. She came walking up to the booth. But after that first time, I realized that this was a person that I wanted to get to know more. So this past year went rolling by, month by month. Situation for Karen became more dire. And I, as the members of our small group over in Pullman, were reaching out and to extend love and support to her. So she called me up in May and said, Pam, I need you to drive me to Colfax. Okay, she said, I gotta go see a doctor, and I want you to come get me. Okay, so I think that was the next morning I did that. Went over to her house and picked her up, and on the way to Colfax, she said, this is a specialist that I'm seeing, and I don't want to listen to him alone. I want you to go in with me. So we went into the little room, and we waited for the doctor to come in, and his news was harsh. Not much promise of her having that many days left. The doctor shed a tear. Karen shed tears. I'm shedding a tear. I was very emotional. And as I brought the car around out front for Karen, I said, how about we just go get ice cream? And she goes, sure. So she says, where do you go in Colfax for ice cream? We go to Zips. So on we went. Now this was such a gorgeous day. This last May. I had all the windows of my mom-mobile. All the windows were down, and I got that sunroof open. Wind's coming in, and it's sunny. We're on our way to Zips. Zips is a drive-in, and the counter is about, maybe it's a little higher. It's like here, for me to reach up here. So we ordered 2 ice cream cones, pulled off to the side. I had to walk back up. There was 2 cones that suddenly appeared over this shelf at me. 2 cones. I take them, and I walk over to the car, about where the front row is there. How am I going to open the car door? Karen's clear on the other side, and she's belted in. Okay. I put the cones together and went to open the door, and the next thing I saw was the top of this cone toppling over and sliding down the door. And so while I'm grabbing at this thing, this other one starts to tilt, so then I grab this. My hands are like sticky, gooey, and the window's down. I go, here, Karen, take this one. And so she has to lick quickly because it's melting. And I go, so I walked up to the window and I go, my ice cream cone fell and I need a new one. Okay, I'll get you a new one. So then this ice cream cone comes out and we get in and we go downtown, buzz downtown Colfax with the wind in our hair, sun, and vanilla ice cream. NPR blaring on the radio. It was a day that I'll always remember. And thank you, Karen, for taking me under your wing this last year of your life.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about ice cream because Karen liked ice cream and so do I. We had ice cream a number of times. That was a good thing. My name is Trish Hartzell. I was going to get to that, but I had to talk about it. That ice cream is more important. And brown cows. Boy, when I'd visit Karen and Adrian, we'd have brown cows. Does anybody know what a brown cow is? Yeah? Okay. It's a root beer float. At least I think that's an East Coast thing. So Karen was a free thinker, and that's how I met her. A woman that is not bogged down by stereotypes, social expectations of women, or traditional thinking. We had many lively conversations where we questioned everything, and that's what I really liked about Karen. We had a lot of similarities in our upbringing, always feeling a little different, and so we clicked right away when we met. I will miss brainstorming with Karen and her like-minded sister, Adrian. I'd leave after spending a few hours talking with them, and it was just wonderful. And although there were, as you heard, a number of painful periods in her life, I think Karen had many wonderful experiences, adventures, joy, and lots of love. It is safe to say that she lived a full life. And she really loved the UUCP and everyone here, and she inspired me to come here, and I'm a real non-churchy person. And eventually, I joined also. I thought, this is a place even for atheists. In May, Karen drove to my house for the last time. We had soup and grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch, and after we ate, she wanted to take a walk on the trails near my house. It was a warm, sunny day, and we set out on Penstemon Path, which has about 2 miles uphill. There were many wildflowers and shrubs in bloom, and we would occasionally slow down to look at the views, look at the flowers, and listen to the nuthatches that were out there singing. In total, we walked over 4 miles, and she never missed a beat. Karen's pace and her stamina were impressive because I knew about all the medications that she was on, a lot of medication. And those medications zap anybody's energy. I became more aware of other issues with her while we were on this hike because she told me about her colon then and being a bag lady. I don't think she referred to it as bag lady then, and that she lacked full use of her lungs. And climbing on a warm day, climbing uphill, means that you need lung capacity, and I didn't even notice that she was struggling to breathe. I never would have predicted that anybody with such physical trauma would be able to hike and, act like it was a normal day for her. When one's body rebels and begins to shut down, many people acquiesce, but not Karen. And I think that was what really defined her. She was really determined to make sure that she got every moment out of life. And that, I think, also came through when I read about and learned about her relationships. When she lost her husband's, she would meet someone new. Not many people can do that. They stay suffering for a long time, and I admire that about her. I haven't been able to do that myself very well. Karen had a lovely home. It was full of treasures, art, and things that she'd received gifts from a lot of the people, the students that lived with them. And of course, you've heard about Mr. Love and Mr. Wonderful, really precious, soft kitties, Velcro 1 and 2. And I think Karen's attitude and ability to push through her pain, particularly in the last year, can partly be explained by a poem that she wrote and she kept prominently displayed on her fireplace so she could see it daily. And I want to read it. It's very short. I will keep hope. I will keep hope, however slight it is. Hope for a good week, hope for a good day, hope for a good moment. Hope for more ease. I will keep hope through all suffering and loss and darkness. I will keep the last hint of hope close to my heart. Hope for simple comfort, for peace, for acceptance. I will hope for those left behind, hope for all life. I will hope that tomorrow is yet a chance for more hope. Thank you, Karen.
I'm Rodney. While I had only a brief encounter with a long life, well lived, Karen left an indelible mark on me, as she did with so many of us. I don't have an ice cream story. I wish I did. Those who do know me, I'm probably a pretty serious dude. And so maybe there's another side of Karen that I had an opportunity to get a glimpse of. I was fortunate to participate with 7 others in a sources course, a Wellspring sources course lasting 10 weeks that explored some of the roots of Unitarian Universalism. Thank you, Ryan. And it was an opportunity for each of us not only to explore the roots of Unitarian Universalism, but our own interior territory, our own selves. And not just to explore it, but to articulate it and to share it in a pretty heartfelt way. Topics like direct experience of the transcendent And Karen had a little trouble with that one. Ancestral and contemporary prophetic voices. She really had a tough time with process theology and prayer. But she loved nature as guide. She loved humanism. There was so much in common. Interesting, the last topic that we dealt with, dying and death. I could never anticipate what Karen might say in that context. We know it would be, as we know Karen, off the cuff and immediate. But it was penetrating, it was honest, and it was Karen. So strong. A gem. Karen lived a life with passion and conviction, as we know, and always secure in her own skin, speaking her mind, walking the talk. She was comfortable in orchestrating how she lived her life, as she was secure in orchestrating how she would leave it. As Karen wrote, done with grace and dignity. And as we know, as she said goodbye to us, she detailed that account for us, as we've heard and have read. She deeply loved her partners, Pete and then Jim, the rich experiences together, and she equally, deeply grieved their passings. She was not shy in expressing her sorrow, a flow of a tear, a mournful response. And it was after Jim's passing that she searched for a new home, and that home was found in the UUCP community, where she was able to openly mourn the passing of Jim, volunteer her time and her heart to the kids, or maybe assembling the chairs that you're now sitting on. She freely explored the roots and was a meaningful part of the small group of close friends in this church. Now, I might mention that Karen and I actually were very opposed in how we looked at divinity and atheism. We had very, very different opinions on that one, as you can imagine. But we honored each other's perspective. And Karen certainly honored diversity. Karen, a soulful atheist with a heart of gold. Karen, an unwavering advocate of a world without divine spirit, while having undoubted faith in a world flowing with human spirit. Karen, a non-believer who believed. Thank you, Karen, for sharing your impassioned humanity with us with such grace and dignity. And indeed, you have made a difference.
Joe Bonner.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed hearing everybody's shares about Karen. It means a lot to me. I really miss her, like you all do. My name's Joe Bonner, and Karen was my dear friend and neighbor. And we'd been neighbors for quite a while, number of years. And I would see her in passing or getting the RV ready for a trip, and I'd speak with her. But 3 years ago, we adopted a 96-pound Rhodesian Ridgeback. And when she found out that we were driving across town 2 or 3 times a day to the dog park because he needed to run, she insisted that we use her backyard. And I think She really liked to surround herself with people. I think that was really important to her, but she also loved my dog Corey, and Corey loves her. But we were going over there multiple times a day, sometimes up to 5 times a day, depending on what was going on with her. And what was born from that went from friendship to family. And she fussed over us, and we fussed over her, and we became very, very close. Some of the things, when I think about Karen, if I were to describe her, I would describe her as authentic, unapologetically, strong, vibrant, adventurous, smart. She lived life on purpose. She lived in the moment, and she lived every day with intention. She talked to me about coming here and how meaningful it was, and she talked about the assignment, the Wellsprings assignment that you guys have been talking about. And she talked to me about her struggle with the concept of spirituality. But by my metric, she was one of the most spiritual people I had met because of her connection. She took so much pleasure from giving joy to other people. One of her neighbors behind her had commented that they appreciated her lights on her back deck, so she had us string up more lights. She put an out in front. She had her little garden of toys or little keepsakes that, she had a sign, take one, leave one, and then a little sign that said, every day is a new beginning. She volunteered in my grandson's class. She amazed me with everything that she did. She'd be, on her way to yoga or volunteering, and she did so much. Cancer was a thing that she had, but it did not define her. She defined it, if anything else. The way she lived her life, she didn't plan on dying, although she did plan her death and everything surrounded it. She planned on living, and I think one of the reasons that she lived as long as she did with stage 4 is because she planned on living, and that's just her, the way she was. She didn't focus on, the negatives, and I was really inspired by her. When I remember her, some of the things that make me smile when I remember is her wearing a shirt that said, "This is what a feminist looks like," or the bumper sticker on her car that says, "Read banned books." She was a beautiful segue in our lives, and I'm really grateful that I had her. It's sad to lose her, but I'm really grateful. And I brought her red scarf today. She wanted to know if I would become a red hat lady at some point, but I told her I didn't think I was cool enough for that. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So, we've heard a lot of things, but Karen contained multitudes. So I'd invite you now to take a deep breath, and if a memory comes up that would help flesh out the picture, just raise your hand and I'll bring a microphone to you. In particular, we tried to find somebody from the Red Hat Society and failed. So if any of you are from Red Hat, make sure you raise your hand.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, what I remember is I ran into her less than a week before she died at the Kamiak Butte breakfast. And I started talking to her, and she struck me as somebody I should she was telling me, she was telling people about how she was preparing for death, and my reaction was, I wish I'd known this person sooner. You know, I figured she seemed a force of nature, and I knew that I'd get to know her because of that. But when she, I just gave her a throwaway comment that she immediately turned into a gift. I said, she said, I don't know how to prepare for this. I've never been through this before. And I said, well, there's a first time for everything. And she took that as a gift.
The word that always comes to mind for me is dynamic. She was so damn dynamic.
My husband and I were probably the first people to meet Karen when she came to Pullman. Jim was a colleague of my husband's and lived just a few streets down and would walk up sometimes and have coffee with us. So he came up one morning and he said, well, I have a friend coming into Pullman. I don't know where it's going to end. So he took her the day that she arrived, took her to see a festival dance concert, and I happened to be there, and that's where I first met Karen. One of the things that always amused me when about her being so outspoken, I volunteered at the Palouse Medical Hospital, and she was very outstanding. Well, she stopped by the chapel, and she was a little upset because it was just for Christians. And so she was telling me about it, and I took her and introduced her to the chairman of the hospital. I can't remember his name right now, and told her, you tell them about it. And she said, you know, if you're going to have a chapel, you should have a chapel for everybody, regardless of their beliefs. And so it always amused me. I liked Karen. She was so outspoken, and I really enjoyed her.
Thank you. That sounds just like Karen.
Pardon me? Oh, should I hold it? You hold it? Oh, you're going to hold it. Okay. Karen had help at her house from what they call handshake at the WSU, and she was telling me about it because, in fact, she said, "Well, you need to get help," and there is a handshake at U of I as well. And it wasn't happening very fast, but she was doggedly determined to get me some help from handshake. And she was emailing and calling the administrators at the U of I every week. And I was almost embarrassed, but when I did go in there and face them, he said, "Oh yeah, we're going to set something up for you right away." And I did get help, and that was Karen's determination.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of visiting Karen the last time she was in the hospital, just as a friendly visit since I worked there. And it was the most incredible time just sitting with her. She knew her body was, was coming close to her time. But she just, as we sat together, she said that for the first time, she was allowing the love in. And she really felt that people really did love her, and she'd never felt so loved and belonged. And while we were there and the tears were flowing, holding hands, other providers actually just came in on their breaks as well to visit with her and say how much they had inspired her, and and her presence had helped them with other patients. So that love was just rippling out. It was just the most heart-opening. That was just several weeks before. Thank you.
I suspect there are more memories out there waiting to be shared, and I hope that they'll be given voice downstairs during the reception, and I hope that they'll provide comfort in the future. And now I'd like to invite Stan forward to share what...
Adrian online raised her hand.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second here.
Sure thing. Hold on, Stan.
Sorry, Stan. My name's Andre. I'm Karen's nephew and executor, and I've got a couple stories I'd like to share. I wasn't planning on speaking, but one of the stories I have is my grandmother had a
We're
knee
not
replacement.
hearing it, I think.
Oh, you having problems hearing me? Is that better?
Okay, I see Andre on Zoom now, but he's not on the screen. Hold on just a second.
Certainly. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. I have a couple just quick stories about Karen. She was, one of the speakers just recently reminded me, she really was a pit bull that you wanted on your side, and she wouldn't let go. This manifested itself in different ways, and one time was when my grandmother had a knee replacement surgery, and it was over a 3-day weekend, and they said, well, she won't be able to have physical therapy for a couple days because, it's a holiday and we can't get people out. And she basically called up and down, found someone to talk to and said, look, there's one of two things that are going to happen. Either my mother is going to have that physical therapy or there's going to be a lawsuit. Now, do you want to be named in that lawsuit because you're not giving her the care she needs? And guess who's probably the only one to get physical therapy on that 3-day weekend? Was my grandmother. Another story was just last year. We went and, my fiance and I and her mother, my mother, Adrian, and my aunt Karen all went to Yellowstone. And she was apologizing because she was a little bit slow when doing some of the shorter hikes because she had to carry her oxygen because of it was at altitude. And the other reason was because she had just broken some ribs playing pickleball or racquetball the month before. That's the kind of woman Karen was. It doesn't matter where she's at in life. She was just tough as nails and quite an inspiration. Didn't take any gruff from anyone, and would just always try to help people, and just really was kind of a bull in a china shop, but a bull working on your side. And that's just who she was. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
I think we are all grateful to you for doing that work. And now I'll invite Stan forward to share a poem.
You know, I was so excited today, I left my walking stick at home. So I just had to hobble up on my own. That's okay, I made it. I just have a few short remarks, and Alex and I had a talk. What I have to say won't take more than a minute, as I have a pretty good sense of speaking in time. It was my privilege to know Karen. It was my honor that she loved me and I loved her. And I pretty much was with her right up till the end. And this is an easy audience because you're united in one set of thoughts. You love this woman, you had the privilege of knowing her, and you will have the gift of her memories to take with you for the rest of your life. I think I made the minute, right? I want to thank her sister who helped me write one verse. The rest of this is mine, but she helped me straighten out my music portion of this song for Karen. And I want to thank her nephew for both of them to be with Karen for the whole time. Now I have a question for those of you in the back. Can you hear me all right? Good. I got a lot of thumbs up. I'll take that as an affirmative. So you want to go ahead and do the first arrangement. This originally was a song, orally, but it migrated into the 20th century when Elvis borrowed it for Love Me Tender. And I thought this was an appropriate song. A song for Karen. When Palouse winds greet you, be they soft enough to make waves of gold and green, forceful enough to catch the earth and match the sun, remember me. When Palouse winds greet you, know that music was my dearest companion, singing my joy. Lyrics and melodies, winged together, they carried heaven to earth. Remember me. When Palouse winds greet you, they carry my memories of a life so blessed, hiking, sailing, backpacking, seeing the world. Remember me. When Palouse winds greet you, in the brightest or darkest time, dark times were a part of my life, but I found the light. Remember me. Remember me. When the Palouse winds greet you, know that a loving family helped me be strong. My parents, sister, husbands, all my friends created me. Remember me. And this last verse is her wish for all of us here assembled today. When the winds of the Palouse greet you, no regrets, because I have been true to myself. Discover gratitude by dedicating yourself to serving others. When you do that, remember me.
Thank you. And now I'd invite you to rise in body or spirit one more time to sing Karen's favorite hymn, Blue Boat Home. Well, Karen gave us our marching orders. We are to get our act together. Individually and collectively, we are to live with sustainability and civility, and we are to think kindly of her, which is a very, very easy and natural thing to do. For my part, I also aspire to embody Karen's cheerful realism, her candor, her humor. I hope I will be able to face whatever challenges come my way as I age, whether health challenges or otherwise, with the kind of acceptance and grace that she modeled for us all. I will also keep what I'm doing here at this congregation, because she told me over and over and over again how being a part of the UUCP changed her life, how she'd never felt this loved before. And you know what? That matters. That matters. So again, downstairs, you're going to find tables full of her jewelry. She wants us all to take one or some or many and wear them in her honor. Karen, thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your heart and your spirit with us all. You weren't just a good human being or a decent human being. You were an extraordinary one. And you led a rich and generous life full of love. In your honor, may we each and all go forth and strive to do the same. May the peace which passeth understanding be with us today and in all the days to come. Amen, and blessed be.